Okay, good morning. We are in Shin Mem Hey, and this siman is very introductory and very yesodistic. Okay, good reference. So let's go on. Ted Vav. Bait she'ein tocho asara v'kriyo mashlimo la'asara. You have a house. The walls from the outside, including the ceiling and the roof, from the outside, the height is 10 tfachim. V'yesh bo arba al arba, and on the inside you have 4 by 4 tfachim. So tocho karmelit v'al gabo rishus hayachid. So the din is, since on the inside you don't have airspace of 10 tfachim high, that's the case, then obviously if there would be 10 asara tfachim on the inside, then of course it's a rishus hayachid. But this the case is you don't. But on the outside you have 4 walls, and 4 walls that are 10 tfachim high. So therefore, when you stand on top of this house, on top of the roof, so then the top is rishus hayachid, because you can see where the end of the roof is. So we call that mechitzot hanikarot. You can recognize the walls. So we say it goes up lashamayim. It keeps going up the walls. V'im chokek bo arba al arba. So in this case, where on the inside you don't have 4 by 4 with a height of 10 tfachim airspace, so afilu ba'emtza rachok min v'im chokek bo. So then what you do is you carve out, you dig out 4 by 4, deeper in the middle of the house, anywhere in the middle of the room. It could be far away from the walls. Afilu ba'emtza rachok min katalim, way more than lavud. So anywhere in the house, in the middle of the room, you just dig out into the floor. And the bottom of where you dig out, you have a height of 10. So now and if that area is at least 4 by 4 tefachim, right? So now in this area, from the outside, you have walls of 10, and on the inside, you have the height of 10. So the nasa kulo rishus hayachid. The entire house now has a din of rishus hayachid, the Rosh explains not only that 4 by 4, but really the sides midin chure rishus hayachid. Chure rishus hayachid, and therefore that's why I leave it on the sides. Okay. Ted Zayin. Gag habolet ala mechitzot habayit v'inyan she'en habayit nikarot la'omed ala gag. Now what happens if the wall, the floor of the roof extends? So in other words, your roof extends beyond, that's how most of us make our houses, so that this way the water doesn't get inside. You make the roof extend beyond the walls of the house. So what happens? When you're standing on top of the roof, right, they were talking about a flat roof, when you're walking on top of the roof, now you can no longer see the walls of the house, because it's covered up by the edge of your roof that goes beyond the house. So what's the din? Have karmelit. Avafiluhu gavoa v'rachav harbe. So now, since you can't see the edge of the walls, the entire roof now has a din of a karmelit because of this extension, the roof extending onward. Vafilu gavoa v'rachav harbe. It doesn't matter how high it is, how long it is. That's just to point out. There is a discussion on Machloket, the Mishnah Berurah paskins like the Magen Avraham, that is the only time this has a din of a karmelit is when the extension is at least 4 tfachim long. If the extension protrudes 4 tfachim, then because a din of a karmelit is 4 by 4, so therefore it becomes, the whole roof becomes a karmelit. If it be less, if the extension would just extend, a few inches, so then it's a machloket, and he says, you could be mekel, especially since we're assuming we're going to get to the din that the karmelis can't be more than 10 tfachim high, and there is an opinion. So normally the pshat is, and the halacha is, that when you're standing on a roof, if a roof would have a din of a karmelis, okay, then we say the bottom of the ground for this purpose is the roof, and now, so there's a halacha that you don't have a carmelit above 10, just like with Shus Arabim, we don't have above 10 tfachim, but it starts from the roof. And when you go to 10 tfachim above the roof, now that becomes a makom patur, and it's no longer a carmelis. So some say that even applies in this case, that you don't go by the top of the roof, you go by the floor, so that's part of what he brings in. But bottom line, on top of a roof, as long as it doesn't protrude 4 tfachim, then we say that the walls are nikar and it is a rishus hayachid. Ve'im chalon patuach lo min habayit, have kirishus hayachid. Now let's say you have a door that leads to the roof, which we usually do have in our homes, that if you want to get to the roof, again, it depends. If you do have access through a door, that's at least 4 by 4, but this is getting access to the roof. If it's at least 4 by 4 tfachim big, then we call the entire the roof, even if the gag extends, we say the whole thing is a rishus hayachid because the house is a rishus hayachid, and since you can access through the house. So again, it depends how your house is built. If you can access through the inside of your house, then we call that chore reshus hayachid, and therefore also this is not a problem. V'chein zizin aboltim min hakotel. So too, if you have a platform that extends outside the wall of your house, if you have a wall, maybe a windowsill that's a 4 by 4. You have an extension that goes outside, that extends outside your house. So v'chen zizin aboltim min hakotel, right? A flat board of yesh behen arba'al arba'ah, and it's 4 by 4. Have a carmelit. So the din of this is a carmelit because there are no clear walls. Right? It's just a board of wood that extends on the wall of your house. Elin kein chalon habayit patuach lahem. But if you have a window, so that you have access from the inside of your house through the window to, let's say, a windowsill, or some people have a little bit of an area to put plants and pots and whatever. Or I've seen people put toys out there, especially when you have the bars. So therefore, you're allowed to carry from, even if it hangs over the Rishus Harabim, you're allowed to carry from inside your house to outside the house through your window. Again, the discussion, I don't think you need 4 by 4 on this one, but Tzarachian. Okay, we know Chorei Rishus Hayachid could be even a Kol Shehu. We mentioned the Machlokas the other day in this particular situation, but Lamaisa we hold Chorei Rishus Hayachid could even be a Kol Shehu, and therefore, okay, let's go on. But anyways, normally windows, you can open them up, take out the, slides, and you usually have also an opening of 4 by 4. Yud Zayin. Chorei Carmelit Einam Ke Carmelit. So the din of Chorei Rishus Hayachid, it doesn't apply to, it's not the same by Carmelit. Alehem Nidonim Figovam Verochvam. You just have to look at that space, whatever the particular case comes up, and you just decide, is it 4 by 4, not 4 by 4? Is it 3 high, 10 high, etc. So it sounds, probably you have to choose between those two, exactly. It's either a Carmelit or a Rishus, or a Makom Patur. Fine. Yurchet. Geder Carmelit. Now, so what's a Carmelit? Shaloi, or some parameters by a Carmelit. Shaloi yehe pachot mi'arba'ah arba'ah. It can never be less than 4 by 4 tfachim. Ve'eno tofeset ad asara. And it can never go above 10 tfachim. So that's what I mentioned. It can never it never continues beyond 10 tfachim from the floor. The one exception is, according to most poskim, is above the roof. Then the floor basically starts again. Kind of like we're going to see in a moment when you're on top of an ocean. We consider an ocean a Carmelit, and then you get another 10 tfachim. We're going to see that now. You get 10 tfachim, starts from the top of the water. Okay, even though we know water is not mevalta or rishus hayachid, etc. A little similar. Here, let's read. Once you go beyond 10 tfachim, it turns into a makom patur. Right? When it's above 10 tfachim, it must only be a makom patur or a shasayachid, depending if it's 4x4 with walls. Okay. And this is what we just said. Oceans, rivers, we count from the water. That's where we start counting lamala to count the 10. Hilkach. Therefore, hanotel mehem al pnei mayim ad asara ba'avir have a carmelite. If you're carrying above water and moving things above water, body of water, so then that's a problem up until 10 tfachim. Beyond that, it's a makom patur. Lamala mi asara ba'avir have a makom patur. Haga. Now just a reminder, it's obvious, for a carmelite, we're not allowed to carry daled amos, just like a Rosh Hashanah, and you can't carry from a carmelite to Rosh Hashanah or a carmelite to a Rosh Hashanah, and same the converse. Haga, bor ha'omed v'carmelite. Afilu amok mea ama have a carmelite. So this is a little slight twist. We said above 10 cannot be a carmelite. But if within a carmelite you have a big hole, a big pit, even going down 100 amot, then it still has a din of a carmelite. Where it turns into a makom patur is only if you're going height-wise into airspace, but not if you're going below ground. If it's below ground, it gets swallowed up by a carmelite. But if obviously if the hole is 4x4, then it'd be a Rosh Hashanah, the ein makom patur, the carmelite, and this is also because he points out you never have a general rule is, alright, we're going to see this again in a second, we'll explain. In a carmelite, you never have a makom patur inside. It could be obviously above the airspace, it'll turn into a makom patur above 10, but with below 10, right, it's not that, because it's not in the carmelis. Inside a carmelis, you'll never have a makom patur. It remains a carmelis. Doesn't it do makom patur? A Rosh Hashanah has nothing to do with ownership, nothing to do with living, nothing to do with hukah fodira. Rosh Hashanah has nothing to do with that. It's very simple. Walls, no walls, 4x4, 10 high, not 10 high. We'll actually come up to a case in a moment by a karpef. There's a special din derabanan that it gets a din of a carmelis. Midaraisa, it is a Rosh Hashanah. Midarabanan, it turns into a carmelis. We'll get to that in a moment. Yutet. Makom patur hu makom she'en bo arba'a. A makom patur, by definition, it has no 4x4. Well, again, the airspace way above is another story. But generally speaking, it doesn't have 4x4. V'gavoa mishlosha, and it needs to be 3 above the ground, ulamala ad larakia, and then it goes up to the shemayim. It needs to be above 3, because below 3, it's considered part of the adjacent ground. It just, right, you don't, the Rosh Hashanah, it continues, unless you get a step of 3 tfachim high, then it knocks it out of normal walking, and then it loses its status, and then it turns into a makom patur. Oh, or you have a charitz, a ditch, a hole in the ground. She'ein v'araba'ah, and it's not 4x4. The amok yeter mishlosha, and it's deeper than 3. If it's less than 3, it's part of the Rosh Hashanah. Right? If we're talking an open field where people walk, or carmelis, whatever. And so, in order for it to, so if it's not 4x4, and then it would be a makom patur, unless it's in a carmelis. We just said. Again, it's a machloket. We're going to read that right now. The Ramah just said you're not going to have a makom patur in a carmelis. So that's a machloket we're going to say right now. V'chen ha-mechitzot ha-gavot mishlosha ulamala ve'ein b'neim arba'a. So too, if you have walls outside, so you have proper walls, it's 3 tfachim, and it's 3 tfachim high, and it has to be at least 3 tfachim high, otherwise it just doesn't mean it's not a wall. Halachically, and ein b'neim arba, and it doesn't have 4x4. Okay. Haga. Right, if it'd be 4x4, it would be a carmelis. V'kol ze davka be'omed b'rshus harabim. Now, everything that we said, that when you have by a makom patur, all these little parameters. And once you hit 3 high, and it's not 4x4, etc., everything we just said is when we're talking about in Rishus Harabim. Ava b'Karmelis, this is the first opinion that the Ramah holds lahalacha. And Lamaisa, we hold of it lachatchila, but we're going to be, you could be mekel b'shat atchak. What is b'shat atchak? Okay. But lachatchila, we want to be machmer. That's the first opinion we're reading right now. In a Karmelis, what do we say? Amrinan matzah minat mino v'neor v'dino ke Karmelis. Whenever you have a makom patur within a Karmelis, it gets swallowed up, and it all has it's a chumrah. We call it a din of a Karmelis, and it has the chumras of being a Karmelis. Why? Because midaraisa, a makom patur and a Karmelis is the same. It's always a makom patur. Karmelis is the makom that's created midarabanan lechumra, and so since really they are the same thing, it has a din of a Karmelit. That's the first opinion. V'yesh cholkim, and say no. Ve'omrim ein chiluk ben Rosh Hashanah l'Karmelis. There is no difference. This is a makom patur, and that's a Karmelis. And Chazal were machmer to make a Karmelis, but not to now start making a makom patur into a Karmelis. Aval im omed b'rishus hayachid l'kul yam adin krishus hayachid. And anytime anytime you have a Rishus Hayachid, with any space, any domain that you have 4 walls, and it's 4x4, no matter what you put inside, it stays a Rishus Hayachid. You don't have a Makom Patur inside a Rishus Hayachid. Right? That's a Din Deraisa, and it continues as a Din Derabanan, and that's different. Okay. Shin Mem Vav. Dine Eruvim Min HaTorah. Mina Torah in chayav elo b'motzi u'machnis v'zorik u'moshit min rishus hayachid l'rishus harabim. According to the Torah, the only time you're chayav for hotzah is if just to explain, you have an akira and a hanacha. You lift up from the ground and you put down. You have to have both. And it could be done by just picking it up and putting it down. It could be done by picking it up, throwing it, and having it land. Handing it to somebody. When you put it down in their hand, that's your hanacha. That's called putting it down. So anyways, anytime you go from a Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim, or Rishus Harabim to a Rishus Hayachid, that's you're over the Raisa. Chachamim asru mikarmelit Rishus Hayachid or Rishus Harabim. Chachamim asru also a Karmelis to Rishus Hayachid or to Rishus Harabim, or mehem a Karmelis, or the opposite from them to a Karmelis. Aval makom petur. What about a makom petur? Mutar lechadchila. Lahotzi ulahachnis mimenu lirshus hayachid. Shabbos in the afternoon, during the day, at night, doesn't matter. 100% mutar lachatchila to take objects from a rishus hayachid to a makom petur and vice versa, or a makom petur to a lirshus harabim umehem letocha. Same thing. Aval, this is not okay. Ha'omed b'rishus hayachid. You're standing in rishus hayachid. Umotzi umachnis umoshit, and you take out and bring in, or you. Vice versa, v'zorek l'rishus harabim derech makom patur or ibcha chayav. Let's say, so we learned to go from rishus hayachid to rishus harabim, vice versa. It's an isur daraisa. Even if you have a makom patur in the middle of you, right? But you're taking it, but it's the akira and the hanacha is not stopping in the makom patur. It's all in rishus hayachid and then in rishus harabim, either direction. So that's why you're chayav. Obviously, if you put it down in the makom patur, and then let go, and then pick it up and put it into the other one, that would be only an isur darabanan. V'chen, lo ya'amar adam al makom patur, v'yikach chifetz miyado mish omed b'rishus harabim, zinu mish omed b'rishus hayachid or ibcha. One obviously can also not be standing in a makom patur, and then you pick it up from a rishus hayachid and put it into rishus harabim, or vice versa. Okay.
Ulahachli.
Okay. Ulahachlif derech makom petor, and to move through a makom petor, b'shiyus derabanan, to take it from one Karmelis, you're standing in a makom petor, and then take it to another Karmelis, Rishus Darabanan. Yesh Osrim v'yesh Matirim. Some say it's Asr, some say it's Mutter. Some say it's Asr in order to not make any differentiation between a Rishus that's Daraisa, Darabanan. We say it's Asr. Good question. If Rishus Yachid, Darabanan, I'm not familiar right now. So, Carmelist to Carmelist for sure. Would be Mutter. Alright. So yesh osrin v'yesh matirin, and the halacha is we do follow the yesh matirin, that you're allowed to lechatchila take it from one Carmelist to another Carmelist, even through a makom patur. There might be another application. We have to think about it. It gives you a bigger kula. Because to take it from a makom derabanan to a makom derabanan through a makom patur would be a gzera l'gzera. Or similar to that idea. Bet, min ha-Torah, ein chayav ela b'ma'avir arba amas b'reshus harabim. Min ha-Torah, the only time you're chayav for carrying in a reshus harabim is if you carry it daled amos. We're going to see in a moment if daled amos is what we call daled amos, or is it 5.6 amos. We'll see in a moment. But anyways, the only time you're chayav is if you move it, carry it within either you take it from one rishus to another, that we explained, or if you stay inside a rishus harabim and you carry daled amos. You're mutter lechatchila to carry it 2 amos this way, 2 amos that way, 2 amos this way, 2 amos all day long. You can be carrying in rishus harabim 2 amos. There's no eser darabanan. Chachamim asru lavir arba amos b'karmelit, and Chachamim asru also in a karmelit to carry an object, to move it daled amos. V'yam ubika treg avnei karmelis ninu mutar tetel mizol ezol toch arba amos. So here, you're allowed to carry from one Carmelist to another. So that's another principle. Now you have even without a makom patur in the middle. So we got to think of a better practical.
The case before where it said lahachlat derech makom patur b'reshus darabanan, that meant to go from reshus harabim to a Carmelist through a makom patur, or to go from reshus yachid to a Carmelist derech makom patur. That's what it meant.
Oh, very good, very good. So in Aleph, that's right. You could even take it from, as you said, from a reshus harabim into a Carmelist, if you do it through a makom patur. But you can't take it from reshus harabim to a Carmelist, but you could get it there if you have a makom patur in between. Either you get some kind of a pole to, or whatever. You figure it out. Create a makom patur before Shabbos, and then you got yourself a way to carry.
But the material.
That's in the material.
Allow it. The Raisa to makom patur to a Carmelist. That's the material.
Correct. The material lets you do that, and that's the halacha. Okay. Again, I'm sure someone will say it's good to be machmer, but anyway, it's interesting. Sometimes Achronim say it's good to be machmer, sometimes they're quiet. But anyways, go ahead.
What they're saying here about the 2 different trade governing Carmelists, but even so, it's not. There's no problem carrying from a Carmelist to another Carmelist.
There's zero problem. Here in Bet, we're learning it's zero problem to carry from any Carmelist into any Carmelist. Because some Carmelists are really makom patur, and some Carmelists are really, on the Raisa level, and some Carmelists are really a reshus hayachid. You have different types of Carmelists. And even though you have 2 different types of Carmelists, it's clear you're allowed to carry from any Carmelist into any Carmelist. There's no problem. Right, on the Raisa level, there's no problem, and then therefore, in the Rabbanan level, they're not machalik, because what happens is if you start making all kinds of chilukim, people are going to misunderstand what is. They're going to start thinking, oh, then that's a reshus hayachid, not a Carmelist, etc. So, bottom line, any Carmelist you're allowed to carry. But obviously, since you can't carry daled amos in one Carmelist, you obviously can't carry daled amos between 2 Carmelists. Obviously, in other words, you can't move it more than daled amos.